There's very strong competition here in Spruce Meadows.
Come on, Albert. 39.6 seconds. He has to go clear, and he's going for it.
I've always believed in everything that you can call it dreams or goals or objectives, whatever you want. But I think it's important to have a goal or a dream.
Canada's Eric Lamaze, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah! Hello and welcome to the Spruce Meadows television facilities for our annual look back on a championship season of sport, that championship season from Spruce Meadows. I'm Ian Allison, joined as always by John Garner. The 40th anniversary is now in the books. We were excited coming into this year. It lived up to every expectation and beyond.
About that, Ian. I mean, it was absolutely unbelievable, quite frankly. You know, we were talking, even as we were getting set up today, about reminiscing about last year doing this show and what the 40th might unfold for us and at Spruce Meadows. And I think it was well beyond any preconceived expectation.
We certainly had some things on the radar coming into the season, but I'll throw a few out there just to discuss off the top of the show. Scott Brash.
Well, again, a year ago, he wasn't really on the radar, but then he went off into Geneva, won the Rolex Grand Prix there, carried then on into Aachen, won the Grand Prix there, and then ended up at Spruce Meadows at the Masters. Unbelievable stuff.
People thought it was impossible. The Rolex Grand Slam of show jumping, now an historic event in this sport. Then we got into the veterans that we were looking for this year, and they did not disappoint. The Americans particularly strong.
Well, the Americans really were strong, and Beezy Madden, Kent Farrington, McLean Ward, the usual cast of characters. I think Beezy would say she had a less than stellar year by her standards.
Most should have seasons like that.
Yeah, exactly. The other two, absolutely what you would expect. But how about our old pal Spooner and Rich Fellas? I mean, for me, actually, Richard Spooner may have had one of his best seasons ever.
He keeps bringing these veteran horses to Spruce Meadows and doing nothing but win money. And then the young names, new on the horizon, not even a forethought when this venue started.
Well, exactly, Ian. I mean, they're in their early 20s, and I think what it really does, it bodes well for the sport in North America as a whole, because three of the characters, Cara Chad, Juan Pablo Gaspar, and Reed Kessler, three different countries, Canada, US, and Mexico. And I think the future of the sport is very bright.
Reed Kessler, the veteran amongst that trio, not even 25 years of age yet. She's been to the Olympic Games. She's won the ATCO Power Queen Elizabeth II Cup, and she is just shy of $1 million in career earnings at Spruce Meadows. A name to remember for the future. The youngsters and the veterans playing at the top of their games here at Spruce Meadows in 2015. In the early 1970s, Spruce Meadows founders Ron and Marg Southern bought a vacant piece of property south of the city of Calgary, a cattle feedlot, and the Spruce Meadows dream was spawned. Now, 40 years later, it's astounding what has happened here.
It's absolutely incredible, Ian. I mean, basically a blank canvas to create something of their vision. And I think the most intriguing thing to me is over the 40 years, they have allowed, encouraged, brought in artists of many different types to add into this canvas, but always with that singular vision.
The dream was born. The riding hall opened in April of 1975. In April 2015, the 40th anniversary season started. It was a memorable day.
It was, it was spectacular, and it was so much fun. See so many friends from over the years, the people that have impacted Spruce Meadows, impacted the sport, and indeed the community of Calgary.
Who would have even believed that when we held our very first tournament with minimal facilities, 4 or 5 of our founding volunteers clapping to the Radetskis, who would have believed that Spruce Meadows would become the premier show jumping facility in the world?
I've been to 12 Olympic Games. I've been to the Stanley Cup. I've been to the Grey Cup. I've been to the FIFA World Cup. And I'm here to tell you today, in my considered opinion, This is the most spectacular field of play for sport in the world, right here at Spruce Meadows.
Those memorable and emotional comments made by both Linda Southern-Heathcott, Scott Russell, and a host of others on that 40th anniversary launch really set the stage for the season, and they really brought full circle the words of Spruce Meadows founder Ron Southern 40 years ago, that this place was to be a place of good friendship, good commerce, and good sport, and that set the stage for the season.
I think that first one, in good friendship, I think that is the overriding one to me from that particular day, and actually over the years. You know, the sport is the sport, and Spruce Meadows has become renowned for the top sport. The commerce, no question, the people that come to it. But I think that the friendships that people have made through those 40 years, they're lifelong.
Well, all that's going on in the center of the property. There was a shrouded piece, the biggest project of the 40th anniversary season. Founders Plaza was under construction.
You know, what's I always still find interesting at Spruce Meadows, when you wander around, there's people that will wander in and out and they say, you know, I haven't been here for 5 years. I can't believe how much it's changed. Imagine if you'd only come here once in 1975 and then came back in 2015. Your head would fall off your shoulders. But even 1 year, I mean, from 1 year to the next, there are so many changes.
In 1975, there wasn't a tree on the property. Now Founders Plaza is a centerpiece of the Spruce Meadows property. And in September, with the world watching, it was officially opened.
Well, the opening of Founders Plaza was very special for me. There's so many people that have helped to found Spruce Meadows, whether it's our volunteers. You know, we had people that have helped us as a volunteer in the Pegasus Club for over 40 years, or for 40 years. We have founding sponsors that have been with us for 40 years. We have, you know, athletes that have been around for 40 years that are still competing. And so it was about the bringing of all of those people together, because it's a large web, and Spruce Meadows is a place, but it's not bricks and mortar. It's the people that are here and the people that make it alive. And so Wednesday was a time for us to pay tribute to Marg and Ron Southern, because they're always thanking others for what others have helped them do. But it was a time to say thank you to Marg and Ron for what they've done in bringing all these people from around the world together in this wonderful journey that's called Spruce Meadows.
Certainly winning the big Grand Prix at the Masters twice is a big deal, but I would say the very best memory was our Nations Cup win. I had the great privilege and pleasure of being on that team.
Canada jumps to victory in the BMO Financial Group Nations Cup.
I would like to take the opportunity to wish Spruce Meadows a well-deserved and a happy 40th anniversary.
Winning the Ciboleaf, the Du Maurier, obviously was my greatest accomplishment, and there is nothing like winning that class. It doesn't really get any better than that.
Well, it'll have to be 2009 CP Grand Prix at the Masters. One of the biggest wins of my career, and a great battle between Hickstead and Sapphire on a beautiful day here, packed house, and it was just a very special day in my career. Happy 40th Spruce Meadows and many more.
Since the doors opened at Spruce Meadows in 1975, one of the fundamental tenets has been about giving back to the community, whether it be through education programs, saluting the military. Yeah. First responders is a prime example.
Well, and it's just a great event, and having those groups out here at Spruce Meadows. You know, you get the tactical unit. I love those tactical trucks. They're absolutely fantastic. The police dogs, the fire and rescue, and the having all the paramedics out there. It's awesome.
Of course, first responders had particular focus just a couple of years ago with the historic floods in southern Alberta, and that continues to this day, as does a fundraising initiative known as Horses Jump to Give a Leg Up. And it's really taken off, hasn't it?
It's grown some legs, hasn't it? But, you know, what that's about is for these not-for-profit organizations that are struggling to try and get some funding. You know, they can get one of these horses, get it painted up, decorated, and then put it up for auction. And it's absolutely great.
The herd arrives at Spruce Meadows in early June. It grazes throughout the property through September, and then they're off to their new homes. Over the last couple of years, nearly $250,000 has been raised. From very modest beginnings decades ago, the Spruce Meadows Summer Series has now become a major tour stop on the FEI calendar. This year, no exception, a highlight indeed. $6 million in prize money. We had the top 5 all-time money winners coming. And of course, it all starts with the Spruce Meadows National presented by Rolex.
And the sheer volume of horses in, I mean, remember when all those entries were coming in, it was like, my goodness me, how are you going to pigeonhole all these horses in? But you know what, it all worked out. As always, the focus is on the international ring, exactly where it should be, and I'll tell you what, they didn't disappoint.
Many people fail to realize there's 6 competitive rings here at Spruce Meadows, but all eyes focus on Center Court, the international ring, and it had a great roster of winners early on to serve notice that it was going to be a very exciting season of sport.
Well, you get the usual cast of characters, right? I mean, Lamar's was out of the gate early, and you got to have the maple leaf up the flagpole. About Andres Rodriguez, now, there was an interesting character for me from Venezuela. He's, you know, resides in the United States, but he's really climbing up the international rankings, and 2 wins early, that got him going.
This young man served notice as a preview to his Pan American Games aspirations. You know, he's a student of Eddie Mackin and formerly of Nelson Pessoa. He's learned from the best, and now he's looking to take it to the next level himself.
Yeah, but again, what struck me is how solid he was early, but then really when you had to have everything in place on the weekend for the biggest events, he struggled a bit.
The cream tends to rise.
It does, doesn't it, on the weekend out in that ring? Yeah, you bet.
Many steps above him, Kent Farrington of the United States, who over the last few years has become a dominant force, and he showed us why during the Spruce Meadows National.
When he came to Spruce Meadows, Ian is the number 3 ranked rider in the world, and that, quite frankly, is a different stratosphere. I mean, when you are sitting up there, and especially as a North American rider, it's really hard to get those big ranking points to get there and to stay there. And in my mind, Kent Farrington is now one of the global superstars in this sport.
So over 50 horses start the RBC Grand Prix presented by Rolex. A dozen make it to the jump off, but again, he showed he was a cut above with Voyeur.
Well, again, it's all about that strategy, that planning. He gets that late draw, and you know, you have to feel a little bit for Reed Kessler. She's done all she can. She's sitting there. She's in first place. She knew what was coming, and she's been beaten by Kent before, and I dare say it's going to happen again. She'd done all she could, but when you give a guy like that the opportunity, we'd seen it the year before where he could have won a couple of major competitions. He was so quick, he had a rail down. I thought he actually handled this perfectly. He did just enough to have a comfortable victory.
Kent Farrington and Voyeur, 2015 champions of the RBC Grand Prix at the Spruce Meadows National.
The secret is get really good horses. That's the secret. And luckily I have some great people behind my career. The Noose family that owns Voyeur, have been really supportive of me, and that's why I'm able to do it at this level today with them and a bunch of other people that have really stepped up to help me get here.
So many don't appreciate this sport as a team sport, and much of the teamwork and the program takes place outside the field of play.
And you're on the competitive service for under 2 minutes. Well, at least you hope you are. So, yeah, I mean, there is so much work by so many people that goes into getting that performance right.
There's no better example of that than Richard Spooner of the United States. The program he has developed over the years with his aging horses defies the odds and then results in just victories.
Well, this year, Ian, I mean, you remember, we're sitting there chatting at the beginning of the week about how, you know what, I think time's caught up with the gang from Spooner Yard. You know, he's at that stage in his career, and he's got veteran horses. They're all in their late teens, Chivas and Cristallo, and they were not looking good. They really weren't. I remember sitting down having a chat with him and going, so how's things at? Where do you feel things are? And he's like, oh, we'll be there. We'll be okay for the weekend. Don't worry.
He thought he had a shiny apple. He was thinking he was maybe riding applesauce, but then we get to the ATCO Structures and Logistics Cup, and he puts on a championship performance.
Well, it's a clinic, Ian. I mean, he is able to turn the switch. He's able to go and produce the good when you have to do it. But he's done all the work beforehand. I mean, we're talking about Farrington with teamwork. It's also the process of going about it day by day by day, and he is meticulous in his planning.
Then there's the program he has with the Big Bay Cristallo. This horse comes into the final event of the Spruce Meadows National, the Seanock Nexen Cup, a grueling derby, kilometer in length, couple of dozen jumping efforts. They're like kids out there.
It's remarkable, Ian, quite frankly, and it shouldn't surprise you anymore, because you and I both know of how fit that horse is, how hard Spooner has to work, and how hard Cristallo works to get the job done. But like year after year, they seem to keep going.
He works probably harder now than he did when he was younger. I think it was Jack LaLanne that said, as I get twice as old, I have to work twice as hard to stay half as fit. So he works really hard. He lunges in the morning. He probably lunged for 45 minutes this morning. He worked hard yesterday and the day before and the day before. I mean, he just is constantly working, and it seems to suit him. He likes it. If I don't work him, he's totally out of his mind.
The Seanock Nexen Cup goes to Richard Spooner and his 17-year-old gelding, Cristallo. The second stop on the Spruce Meadows Summer Series is the Spruce Meadows Continental CSI 5-Star, which features the CP Grand Prix, new venue, different horses often, and it is always one of the highlights of the season.
It is, and rightly so. The Meadows on the Green arena is a spectacular ring. I love the confines of it, quite frankly. I mean, the International Ring has its aura, but for me, the Meadows on the Green, it's almost like a gladiator pit. You've got the high walls in there, and I think certain horses really do excel on that venue.
Well, it's like going to a completely different venue. You're still on the Spruce Meadows grounds proper, but the Meadows on the Green serves up a whole different set of circumstances, different field, different sort of jumping surface, albeit on grass. And Anthony D'Ambrosio was the man charged with writing the test for the CP Grand Prix, which had over 50 entries started.
Well, we're going to carry on with the artist theme as we go through here. We'd move from Uliano Vizzani, the Italian course designer, to Anthony D'Ambrosio, who has his own unique style. Now, you've got a lot of American riders, especially, that would be used to those tactics that he has. But you put them again on the confines of the Meadows on the Green, and it really does create a different dynamic.
This year, the American stars shone in this event,
so.
And McLean Ward showed us why he is the best in the world. He's got a great roster of horses. He is a super student of this sport, and he's got all the tools to be amongst the very best.
Yeah, but with Rothschild, who he opted to go with on this day, that is a combination that excels in that ring. Finds the International Ring maybe a little bit too expansive for Rothschild, but on the Meadows on the Green, they are probably the best combination to go tackle it. 14
years of age, they've been together for 8 seasons now, so they know each other like the back of each other's hands. The horse is not maybe the definitive show jumper by type, but he and McLean Ward have a real chemistry.
Well, he's a tough one. I mean, he's not the easiest one to ride. I mean, McLean is a top jockey, but he'd be a little bit of a different feel. I mean, he doesn't have a long stride. His ears are always pinned backwards, but he is a fighter, boy.
It was a memorable jump off with a memorable result for a combination that went on later this summer to win the Pan American Games individual gold medal.
Todd set a hell of a jump-off round. I didn't need to see it. I knew what the time was, and I knew I had to try to do the best I could. and I was a little bit lucky at the second to last. Somehow my horse scrambled over it, and there was nothing really to lose to the last, and it worked out.
Beautiful trophy, symbolic of supremacy in the CP Grand Prix. In many respects, the sport of international show jumping traces its roots back to the military, and the military has had a presence at Spruce Meadows since that very first tournament held in June of 1976. That tradition continued again this year at the ATCO Power Queen Elizabeth II Cup and on many other days here at Spruce Meadows, but specifically with the 100-man guard and the visit of His Excellency, the Governor-General of Canada, David Johnston.
I mean, I think it's really important for Spruce Meadows for that tradition. You know, they're very keen to, adamant, if you will, to keep the tradition of the sport alive. You've got the long poles, you've got jumping on grass, you've got the real natural obstacles. Keeping those military ties has been critical, I think, also to the uniqueness of the North American tournament.
It's a special stage each July when the 100-man guard comes through the clock tower of the International Ring, and after inspection, they perform the feu de joie. Once the Spruce Meadows North American Tournament arrives in July, we really are at the peak of the sport. The horses have been at Spruce Meadows for a number of weeks now. They're in good shape. They've adapted to the conditions. Great weather this year. The younger riders are realizing really what it takes, and the younger horses have really, if they've got what it takes, starting to show their stuff.
They really are in, but you know, the pattern is exactly the same, and it doesn't seem to matter which point in the tournament or the tour that you are. We talked about it during the National, how the younger riders, the less experienced ones, they're out of the gate, they're firing, but again, when the weekend comes, you get the big guns.
The stakes are higher on the weekend, the atmosphere is more tense, and we get this sense from the riders that those that are knocking at the door, it's their last sort of rite of passage to see if they belong.
Well, for sure, and you know, especially if you've been at Spruce Meadows for the whole summer, you know, you kind of get that sense that maybe time's running out, but you cannot panic. It is one of the biggest weekends on the global tour. Never mind Spruce Meadows, that is a massive, massive weekend. Well, it was a real eye-opener this year. The 40th anniversary of Spruce Meadows saw some youth come onto the scene, and the TD Cup was a great example. Yeah, and you know, two that we'd been watching. I mean, one had been watching very close for a number of years because she's right from this area, Cara Chad. And I tell you, one kid that I'm really excited for Mexico in the future, Juan Pablo Gaspar. He was a little bit behind it because Cara Chad, on the day, she was absolutely brilliant. Both of these riders under the age of 20, but really showing early on in their careers that they have that next level of competitiveness and commitment. Well, and Cara's been showing it for a long time. I mean, she's a younger of two daughters. Her older sister, Breton, herself a very good rider. But I'll tell you, as a fighter, she has everything that you want. And as a coach, you send that young lady into the ring, and you know you're going to get an effort. You've touched on something very important, the coach. And sometimes that little change can just push you into that next level. And this year, now riding with former Olympic champion Eric Lamaze. Yeah, no question, Ian. And you could just see that transition from a very good rider to now a real international competitor.
I actually just moved over to training with Eric right before Spruce Meadows, so a week before, so it's quite new still, but obviously it's working quite well. And no, he's incredible. I mean, it's Eric Lamaze. It's one of the very best. And he definitely puts more of a competitive edge on everything, which I think was a really necessary step in my career. He really pushes you. It's very refined and very detailed, everything that he has to say. So I'm absolutely loving it right now. He's an incredible coach. He instills so much confidence in his riders, so it's a great feeling.
Cara Chad of Canada, ladies and gentlemen, champion at Spruce Meadows. It's time to revisit a theme. The cream rises when the stakes are highest. I give you McLean Ward. You know, Kent Farrington has set himself out as to be a superstar. He's gotten there. Somebody there already waiting for him is that fellow McLean Ward. I mean,
for me, Ian, I don't think there's anybody right now in the sport who prepares as meticulously as Ward and his whole team, in fact. I mean, when he comes through the clock tower on any horse, he is all set up. He knows his job basically is not to mess it up. He doesn't mess up.
Prepares meticulously and is the worst critic of his performance.
Yeah.
He leaves no stone unturned. So we get to the weekend of the North American. He goes to the roster, a deep roster of horses that all have a plan. He knows them like his own children. Let's go to the Enbridge Cup. Double H Carlos, what a horse. He calls him his ATM.
With very good reason, because when that combination is in and on form, they are almost impossible to beat. And the nice thing for McLean with that horse, he can go to any level of competition he wants. But with the Enbridge Cup, it's set up perfectly for him. He got the late draw and the jump off, and I tell you, you open the door for a crack with that combination and you are dead in the water.
Fast, efficient, plenty of horsepower to get the job done. Then we move to the Atco Power Queen Elizabeth II Cup. Second major win of the weekend for McLean Ward on a 9-year-old mare that he says is the best he's ever ridden.
Well, and who am I to argue? I mean, you know, he's had a horse like Sapphire with his 2 Olympic gold medals, his international victory. But I tell you, when you watch that horse jump, you get really, really impressed with the scope, the horse's natural ability. Clearly, McLean has the program in place, and I'll tell you, I think they're going to be ones to beat for a long time.
I like her because she seems to be a little bit more modern type than Sapphire. She seems to have the courage to get the job done, because this is a 2-round Grand Prix we're speaking about. Get through that round where there's close to 50 starters, and then into the big test, the round of 12.
When that becomes your real scope test, for sure it does. You need all the utilities that you need in a horse like that. But then you get into a jump-off, which we had this year, where McLean's now head-to-head with his teammate, Beezy Madden. And I actually think he did the perfect job. He laid down just enough of a trip. He left all the jumps up, but he forced Beezy to have to go do something she didn't really want to do. He ends up with the win.
I'm really excited about this horse in my life. To see her step up, this is her first major Grand Prix, and it's an incredible horse. When she jumped the clear out in the first round, I was thinking for the second round, you know, a good round would be a good day, right? What really surprised, and I guess surprised probably isn't the right word, impressed to me, is that she handles the tests. You know, particularly here at Spruce Meadows, you have so many funny fences. You know, you have the bicycle, you have all of these different fences. And for a horse in her first Grand Prix to jump all of those things like an old horse, you know, that's very impressive, I think. I don't want to say surprised, but pleased.
One of the great features of the Spruce Meadows 40th anniversary season was celebrating tradition. And one of the traditions of the summer series is, of course, the Derbies. And the North American features the Synovus Energy Classic, the original of the Spruce Meadows Derbies. And this year, one of the Spruce Meadows originals, Leslie Howard, she did it again.
Well, you talk about tradition, Ian, it wouldn't be a derby, would it, without Leslie Howard leading the victory parade. I mean, she is absolutely something else when it comes to Derby Day. She has the template for getting it done. She knows how to prepare. And interestingly, with having Lennox Lewis back underneath her for this one, I mean, you know, this horse hadn't been in the top end of the sport for 2 seasons. She decided that it was, you know, time for him to go and do another job. But she was given the ride back, and I mean that horse. I think I could come out of retirement on that one.
She's done it with different horses, and that's what I really like. Through the decades, starting with the great Sublieft back in the 90s. But there's horses for courses, and Lennox Lewis is certainly a horse for this course.
I think it's because of his mental approach, and he's an easygoing horse. You look at him going around the ring, his ears are pricked, his eyes are bright. But I mean, if you compare him to Cristallo as an example, who's all sort of muscle and thunder and that, and Lennox is going along, he's on a loose rein, looks like I could put my kid on him.
Leslie Howard was delighted with the way the North American turned out.
I've never had a horse as sound as Lennox Lewis. He's never missed a show. We bought him as a 6-year-old. He's 16 now. His legs never fill up. He never limps. And if you watch him stand in the stall, you know, if you go back there in an hour, other horses might be resting one leg or, you know, a little tired. He'll be standing there, I promise, 4 on the floor, eyes pricked, begging for food, and he just never occurs to him to limp. He's just an extremely athletic, sound horse.
The flag was lowered on the Spruce Meadows North American with Leslie Howard's historic win, and then focus turned to the Meadows on the green for the Pan American Cup presented by Rolex, a major Grand Prix to culminate the Spruce Meadows Summer Series. What a brawl it was.
It was absolutely spectacular, and I mean, I think for you and I mean, we've seen some of the best jump-offs in this sport take place on that ring, and this was one of them. Potentially a prelude to the Olympics in Rio de Janeiro next year. Course designed by Brazilian Guilherme Jorge. He's going to get the job down there. And Kent Farrington, BZ Madden, and McLean Ward on your podium.
The best the United States has to offer came to do battle in the Grand Prix. They could make up the team for Rio and or the individual medal results. Particularly Madden and Farrington brought out the big guns.
You know, if you're McLean Ward, you're sitting there and you go and do all that you can do, and you see the trip that Farrington lays down with Voyeur, because he's one of those horses that if he leaves them up, you can't hardly get near him for speed. He has such a big stride. He's a naturally fast horse. And Farrington is just one of those riders. He would rather beat you by 5 seconds than half a second. I mean, he doesn't like to leave anything to chance. I mean, he put down some kind of a trip.
He's been known to go down in flames sometimes with that strategy, but on this day, he was far and away the best in the field, and he ended up the Spruce Meadows season as champion of the Pan American Cup, presented by Rolex.
I had the advantage in the jump-off today of going after McLean. You know, he's one of the most competitive riders in the world, and we always have a good rivalry between us. So I got to watch him go, and unfortunately coming after me is one of my other rivals, also one of the best in the world. And, you know, tough day of sport today, and I thought my horse was fantastic.
That was the round I could do today in that situation. I would never have been able to beat Kent with his stride. It was one of those rounds that Kent does that the day's over, you know, I mean, basically. And I felt with the Pan Am Games coming and with the conditions that was the right round to do again and again, and I'm just thrilled with his performances. You know, he came here, he did 2 Grand Prix, 2 double clears. I mean, can't really be too upset with that.
McLean Ward, speaking of Rothschild's performance at Spruce Meadows, as you always say, just jump clear rounds, don't worry about the rest of it.
You keep jumping double clear rounds in at Spruce Meadows, you'll win an awful lot of money.
Well, he kept on doing it right to the gold medal podium at the Pan American Games just a month following. Our look back on the 40th anniversary Spruce Meadows season, celebrating 4 decades of excellence, continues right after this.
My first CN International for me was very special because I grew up admiring that class and admiring all these European riders coming over here and competing, and I know what it meant to every rider to win that.
Canada's Eric Lamaze.
Happy 40th birthday to Spruce Meadows.
I think the top Spruce Meadows moment for me is I think probably when Arco won in 2008. That's obviously a great highlight in my life.
Nick Skelton does it again with Arco.
You know, I think my top Spruce Meadows memory is just seeing it for the first time. I just wanted to be able to be good enough that someday I could ride at Spruce Meadows. Happy birthday, Spruce Meadows. Hopefully we have 40 more.
Spruce Meadows is a place that gets mentioned most throughout the year once we get together and we're talking. When we get there, we feel completely at home. Everybody loves us, and we pull out something there that we never pull out anywhere else. I don't know why, well I do know why, because we love it, we're treated well, and the guys look forward all year to coming.
Just that feeling that you get, you know, the feeling of jumping, the feeling of winning a class, you know, that feeling is amazing. To me, it's not really about the money, it's about winning the title. If I can win the Grand Slam and do something that no other rider has achieved before, it would just be an unbelievable feeling. It would be a massive, massive dream come true.
A massive, massive dream indeed. A dream that many in the sport felt was impossible. No one had ever won the Rolex Grand Slam of show jumping, the three biggest events in the world, Geneva, Aachen, Spruce Meadows. This quiet Scotsman has quietly put together a resume really without peer over the last 5 years.
In my mind, Ian, there's no question. I mean, you think Olympic team gold medal in London 2012, that was a fun day, wasn't it? And then from there, he just stepped up and stepped up and stepped up. European Championship, team gold medal. I think then for Scott then to go win in Geneva and start it off, not a huge surprise. The horse has jumped well in Geneva before, but you know, Scott was not sure about Aachen. The horse hasn't jumped well on the big grass fields. So I think once he got that win under his belt, all of a sudden I think you've got a rider with supreme confidence. But can you imagine, can you just think about this with me, that you have gone and won those two events and now you've got to sit from May through September with the rest of the show jumping world going on and try and keep that kind of focus?
Well, I think that was one of the great challenges and what is so impressive about how things unfolded. Having the plan, sticking with it, managing Hello Sanctos, who needs to compete.
Yeah.
It's not that he would come to Spruce Meadows and sit on the horse. He had a lot of things to take care of, a lot of business to look after before putting the horse on the Spruce Meadows charter.
Yeah, and being pulled in many different directions. I mean, you know, let's not forget about that. I mean, there were, you know, lots of demands on his time and to get Sanctos to go to certain places. So, you know, full marks for him for staying steadfast with his drive.
Well, the understated Scotsman certainly stayed steadfast with his plan, and you found yourself at the Liège airport loading Hello Sanctos and some 70 other best show jumpers in the world getting ready to come to Spruce Meadows, as you do each September. Tell us about that road trip.
We've got to work on the schedule because I get to the airport about 3 o'clock in the morning and it's awfully dark. But I have to say, it's a great thing to be involved with. We have a great team that works around it. I mean, you know, in reality, it starts the March when your invitations start going out, but then going through all the paperwork, the blood work, making sure that's all in place, and then you get those horses on the plane, the doors get closed, and lift off, and we're on our way.
Well, the commander here of the Spruce Meadows Air Force delivers them on time and on sched every year. Once they touch down in Calgary, a couple of days before jumping commences, that's really the start of the Spruce Meadows Masters.
It is, I think. You know, I mean, I make a joke, my Masters starts about a week earlier, but it really does when the wheels touch down, the doors open, the horses come off, and that's, boy, I'm getting a tingle now. That's a great feeling.
The world arrived on time and ready for the 40th anniversary Spruce Meadows Masters. What a difference a year makes. 2014, 30 centimeters of snow. 2015, crystal clear skies.
Yeah.
Spectacular sport, right out of the blocks, starting Wednesday.
Well, and you've got to be ready at the Masters Inn because, you know, you've got to qualify for the weekend. You've got to get everything in place early, and that starts right from day one. And, you know, as you'd expect, the courses were what you would have come to expect at the Masters. Leopoldo Palacios doing what he does best, and they got progressively tougher and tougher. They really did stick it to him on the Friday in the Tourmaline Cup. Only one clear round, or even with a time fault, Kent Farrington. But for me, it was the fact that that was his second win of the week already, and he was starting to look really sharp for the weekend.
Once the sun went down on the Friday evening, the lights went on, and as always, the Atco Electric 6-bar served up great excitement, and that big gray horse from Switzerland certainly has power.
Yeah, maybe one more round, we might have had another record there, but you know, it couldn't be done, but certainly full marks for his victory.
Jessica Curtin's record stayed intact at 2 meters 12. We turn to Saturday and a 40-year tradition at Spruce Meadows, the BMO Nations Cup. Canada defending its title, coming off a Pan American Games gold medal. 8 of the best nations in the world, however, it will not be easy to defend.
Well, there's no question, Ian, but you know what struck me in my mind, and I think you and I discussed it actually on that weekend, that probably for the first time ever in the history of Spruce Meadows, Canada was the favorite, not one of, but the favorite, the defending champion. You just said it. They'd come off the Pan American gold medal, qualified for the Olympics, and it was that team that had come, and they were very comfortable in that ring now on that day, and I think the home crowd was feeling that.
Nothing assured, however. You had the powerhouse nations from the Netherlands, the United States, of course, Switzerland, always tough, and of course the French.
Well, you know, and the French were one of the big stories of that day. If you think back to it, they were lucky, quite frankly, to actually get into round two. Top six teams come back. But as the second round progressed, they just threw clear round after clear round after clear round. And suddenly it was starting to look like they actually might pull this thing out of the bag.
I guess the rookie story of the BMO Nations Cup this year would have two chapters to it. Brazil, first time ever competing as a team at the Spruce Meadows Masters, and then young Pedro Vinícius. What a story.
Oh, unbelievable, Ian. I mean, I tell you, there's a superstar in the making if he isn't already. But, you know, him and his partner, Cabri, what a lovely, lovely horse. I mean, and they were absolutely brilliant the whole weekend. But talk about I mean, I won't say the anchor performance, but they were the lead-off. They gave the rest of the Brazilian team and Jean-Maurice Bonneau, the chef, that starting point. Double clear round, and it gives every other rider then following on that platform to build off of.
6 left in play. Canada still looking to defend and in reasonably good shape. But that wasn't the story of round 2.
No, it really wasn't, Ian. I mean, as the event unfolded, they just slipped away, ended up coming third. So, I mean, you know, not terrible by any stretch. But the two stories were the French, who we already mentioned, who just kept rising and rising, clear round after clear round. But then it was Brazil. It was, could they actually carry on? Remember, at one point, they were looking like they may not even make the second round. Now they're in the driver's seat. And you get down to the final rider, the final combination of the whole thing, less than a rail to play with. The pressure that you would feel as a rider coming through the clock tower in that environment, the stands are absolutely jam-packed, immense.
He's won an individual world championship, multiple World Cup titles, an Olympic gold medal, 2-time international winner at Spruce Meadows, but this was amongst his greatest rides ever.
Well, and he's never been in this position at Spruce Meadows before. I mean, you know, you talk about what Rodrigo Pessoa has done through his career. He's done everything except that. And I think what we saw there was an absolute masterpiece. I mean, he was brilliant. He was absolutely brilliant. He came in, he knew what he had to do, and he nursed status around there. He allowed the horse to go about doing his job. He knew he had a time fault maybe to play with, so he didn't overly pressure. But he also, you know, you don't want to throw it away by saying, okay, I'm not going to worry about the clock, because that's part of the sport. You've got to ride on the pace.
Even for one of the all-time greats in the sport, this was one of the most memorable moments.
Individually, you know, is one thing, but when you ride in the team and ride for Brazil, it's a different story. More pressure. You have more responsibility, and you're able to share the win with your 3 colleagues and your chef and everybody else that is behind the team. So it ranks all the way up there with the good ones.
Jean-Maurice Bonneau and Team Brazil, champions of the BMO Nations Cup.
If Rodrigo Pessoa had pressure on him to deliver a clear round on Nations Cup Day at the Masters, not to sound like a broken record, the pressure was tenfold that on Scott Brash at the CP International presented by Rolex. $1.5 million in the Grand Prix, a possible €1 million bonus if he wins the Rolex Grand Slam, 60,000 people in the stadium, and going against the best in the world over the toughest course.
And Ian, let's add into this a global audience. I mean, Rodrigo was talking about the pressure of riding for your nation and what that does, and you know, and he was full marks for his clear round. Scott Brash had this pressure on him since May, like 6 months or whatever beforehand. And the whole world of show jumping was watching this and following this. What struck me in chatting with him, like prior to though, was how relaxed he certainly came across. I mean, you know, you had conversations with him. He didn't feel like somebody that was like, oh, this is going to get to me. He was there early. He was prepared. He kind of really seemed to know what was going on.
Many felt the pressure at the CP International. Scott Brash, if he felt it, he didn't show it. He went out and attacked and made it so it was his to win.
Well, he did attack it like a true professional and the #1 ranked rider in the world. He knew the rules, he knew what he had to do. So with his first round, he wasn't nursemaiding going clear. He went in, jumped clear, and jumped quickly to then get that seeding, that pole position for the second round. I mean, maybe buried, if you're buried there somewhere in that top 12, maybe it takes a little bit of the pressure off you. But when you come into the ring as the last one in, knowing what's got to be done, and everybody is watching you. There is not a soul on a horse back there. They're all at the clock tower. He knew it, he felt it, and boy, did he deliver.
Many thought the Rolex Grand Slam of show jumping was impossible. None had jumped the second round clear. Thinking it was impossible, he defied the odds and he made history.
Well, and okay, save a little bit of a tap at those horrible white planks there. I mean, it really didn't look like he was under any difficulty at all. Again, what I found very impressive, we got the time allowed done early. The time allowed had become a bit of an issue for some of the riders. And the last line, it begged you to take your time. It demanded that you treat it with respect. So you had to be on the clock early. He got it done, which allowed him to really take his time, balance himself up, and then just execute the job.
We've talked about Scott Brash. He is something special, but so is his partner, and he knows it. Hello, Sanctos.
I'm absolutely thrilled to be working with such a horse like Sanctos. I have wonderful owners. They're here today that bought Sanctos with the Olympics in mind. And it's incredible that we met each other, and I've been given the opportunity to ride such an amazing horse. And yeah, we're going to try our best to look after him and have him for as long as we can. And I'm sure he'll be with us for the rest of his life.
Grand Prix trophy in the sport. Ladies and gentlemen, your champion, Scott Brash.
The Rolex Grand Slam title was every rider's dream. I didn't actually think it could be done. It's nearly impossible to win those 3 of the biggest Grand Prix in the world, and yeah, this means everything.
What a win for the ages. The final day of the 40th season of international sport. Scott Brash, Hello Sanctos, making history.
Yeah, and that's the thing, Ian, isn't it? I mean, the fact that history was made on the final day of what really was a magical season. Now, this is a point in the event where you would actually say, so, John, what was your lasting memory of the last season? Well, that's it, isn't it? I mean, you can't have a history-defining moment and then go pick something else. I mean, we saw great sport all the way through the season, and it was a wonderful season. But the fact is that a venue like Spruce Meadows, going through 40 years, could finish on that day. I think that says everything about the sport and about this venue. Somehow, year after year, it manages to serve up magical moments and, quite frankly, defies the laws of reality at times.
Magical and memorable moments. It was in the early 1970s that Spruce Meadows founders Marg and Ron Southern had a dream to take a cattle feedlot and turn it into a major international sports venue. That dream has been achieved, and history was made at the 2015 Masters. As we leave you with that championship season, the final word goes to Spruce Meadows founder Ron Southern.
I would like to take a moment to reflect, if I might, for 40 years. And I never thought that we could be, we all have hopes, just like all of you. And I had some imagination of what we would like to be. But I couldn't help but think here on the moment of what a achievement it is for all of the people, and primarily led by Leopoldo and Linda, the efforts that have gone in here to, I think, allow us to stand equal first with these other great tournaments of the world. Aachen and Geneva truly are terrific, and for us to be part of it, and for all of you to take part in what we do is, for someone like myself where the shadows are getting quite long, I want to thank you, because there's many things you can do with your life. There's many things that can be done with sport. There can be many things that can be done with friendship. And really what you've all created here is something extremely unique. And I want to thank all of you for a marvelous sport today and a marvelous future ahead of you. And I hope that you'll return here many times where we can enjoy each other again. Thank you very much.